Hey, this is Guns and Logic. What I've been hoping to do for a while now is open up a dialogue and a discussion about possible solutions with guns in America, and that it seems that accidental deaths, mass killings, and mass shootings have been on the rise, and I wanted to open up a dialogue and just have conversations, and not to be goals not exactly to be politically correct, but it's also, my goal would be not to necessarily land on one side or the other, but to actually just kind of have a conversation and just kind of in this first video look at the extreme solutions, and then hopefully just do conversation, stats, and just see what people comment, see what people talk about, look at articles, possibly look at gun legislation, talk about a big, I would say, maybe stumbling block for any type of legislation would probably be the idea of the ghost guns and the 80% receivals. I think that's going to be one of the biggest hurdles, as far as just culturally, or just the even if you were to create a gun law. First of all, where do you draw the line as to what an 80% receiver is? If you make an 80% receiver, say you serialize an 80% receiver, well, then what if you just made a 70% and 60%? And just how far back in the percentages do you go before it's just a metal block that someone with some machinery skill could still manipulate into a receiver? Um, but we'll get more into ghost guns later, and just different, being a gun owner, the different types of thought processes there are when it comes to concealed carry, whether or not you carry one in the chamber, um, gun safety, being able to take out the mystery behind guns. I think accidental deaths is something that could be hopefully as prevented as possible. And I think part of that's going to be taking away the mystery behind guns. And like I said, probably different legislation, different extremes, and just okay, how do we eliminate and slowly, almost by what's like cross elimination, or no, I'm trying to think of the right word here. These will probably be more polished and refined as we go through here, but and develop, and we'll have different animations and stuff. I'm sure different lighting, but the content though should still be something that is worth discussing. But I would like to see if we, by process of elimination, possibly maybe just get to a solution that maybe people might, I don't want to say adhere to, but maybe also might back, or maybe might push for legislation in some way. But before I get too much into it, what I like to do is kind of discuss the two extreme solutions. Let's just say we have more of the conservative side and the liberal side. Let's say the liberal extreme solution would be to just eliminate, take, and ban everything gun related. Besides law enforcement, I'd say that would probably be the most extreme solution on that end. And the couple problems with that would be, okay, that one's more clearly against the Second Amendment, that if you have the right to bear arms, then the government just can't take everything. But also just imagine the practicality behind that. One, would it be reasonable for any any amount of police office or departments, FBI, ATF, any of them, to go door to door and to actually, one, to get a warrant that size, that'd probably be like some type of martial law executive order, maybe. But besides it being on the extreme end, to go door to door, go into people's houses and just remove the guns. But I do think by the time the full charades will start happening, wool's gonna get out, and they're just guns are still gonna just get hidden. And besides that, the that doesn't necessarily solve any of the problem with the concept that the guns have been so. The way to make a gun has been very simplified, or that the know-how is just, it's already out there. So when it comes to an 80% receival, that's the and with ghost guns, people are going to be able to still, like I said before, at what percentage would it be, a 10% receiver illegal, a 20% receiver, until at one point is it just you're getting a cube sent to you, a metal cube or aluminum cube that you would just mill, because then you could also have what are called jigs that and help you design and cut away what you need to cut and drill what you need to drill in order to make what a receiver is. And we'll have some diagrams, and I'll pull out my AR-15 to show what I'm talking about. But there's so many parts of a gun that are not background checked at all, that there's a lot more to it before you ever get to the point where people are going to go door to door. There's just one, it's just like I said, it's on the extreme non-constitutional side, but also just the practicality and the logic of it. Though, just I think we'll pass that. So let's when it comes to an all-out ban, I just realistically don't see the practicality of it. Now, if the United States, somehow turns into another nation altogether, to where it's just not the same capitalistic values, then that's probably a different conversation. But it does, just as I was looking at the Bill of Rights, it does seem that the Second Amendment is almost this is just kind of me thinking out loud here, feel free to comment, disagree, agree. But the Second Amendment seems to be the insurance for the First Amendment, that if the First Amendment is ever taken away, then okay, the Second Amendment's there to like help us. Like, hey, if the government tried to take away our free speech, it's like, no, um, we have the right to form a militia against tyranny. But then again, I do think had the um, well, we'll get into that later. But the other extreme, then, let's say, which also wouldn't be a solution either, is do nothing. The do nothing obviously is not a solution either, because right now I don't think I'd be making videos if there was some type of if there wasn't some type of problem needing a solution. And I think the problem is not necessarily, it's not the lack of laws, that's for sure, but and it's also, is it the lack of action? yeah, I think there's a disconnect between lack of action and lack of laws, and I think those somewhere um, in the middle. So let's now that we kind of taken those two extremes, it's like okay, now let's go in a notch and now starting more on the conservative side. Then what would be another extreme solution for them, or just another solution would be okay, let's flood the United States then with more guns. I don't think that's. You can almost say that's almost what we are doing based on the number of sales and tax revenue that the government get, and that kind of also why I think gun legislation in general probably is not going to go anywhere either, because just in the past couple of years, I think it was in 2023, just in the gun market, the government made $7 billion just on the tax revenue of gun sales. And I don't know if that includes accessories, but just in this general market, that's $7 billion. And to give a little bit of some a reference point, tobacco products and cigarettes was 11 billion. So pretty close. And speaking of the tobacco industry, it's kind of funny. It's like we know that type of stuff is dangerous, and those correlations between smoking, secondhand smoke, and health, to where one of the two leading causes of death in America per year is heart disease and cancer, and then what do cigarettes contribute to? Heart disease and cancer. So as far as tax revenue goes, I feel like that's going to be that would be a tough sell to Congress, and in order to be like, hey, we want you to limit the sales of guns, but then it's almost like, well, you're limiting the amount of tax revenue that you get, and since money does seem to be a big motivator, I don't, uh, I don't know. Well, that's if that's going to go anywhere, to be honest. But you can almost say that we're in our own perpetual arms race, just with the way gun technology has increased and adapted based on just where guns have been in the past just century alone, and just the different technologies between and different mechanisms that guns use, that it's yeah, like our own perpetual just constant competition and constant okay, gun deals trying to make a better product. And from what I've my understanding, and I'll have to look this up further, and then I can post this in another video. What I find is, the gun industry, how many jobs is that in America as well? So if all of a sudden, if it's like, hey, we want to limit the amount of guns that are being sold or the amount of guns that consumers can buy, what does that do on the job front as well? So there's just so many different aspects, but I don't think, as we've seen, I don't think just a just a half-hearted, hey, here's guns for everybody. Hopefully, it pans out okay. That's just we're just not we're just too good at holding each other or doing things that are not good for us, just for it to be a half-hearted okay. Well, and then like Oprah handing out cars at a show. You get a gun, you get a gun, you get a gun. I don't think that's a good solution either. And going in on the other side, then is you're going to have a some type of individual bans of some things. So like you said, you can have a AR-15 specific ban. You can have a magazine ban. You can have a high capacity ban. So you have specific bans, but again, the idea of just the know-how and the knowledge of how an AR-15 works, just the fact that it's already out there, even if, let's say, you said, okay, no AR-15s for anyone. AR-15s or any of its variants, AR-10s. An AR-15 has many different calibers. AR-10s have different calibers. Then you have the AK variants that are different shape and just different mechanics. But the same concept of from a civilian approach, a tactical long range rifle that can have the capacity to fire as quickly as you can shoot, and it can fire a lot of bullets depending on how fast you can pull the trigger and just with a quick reload time. So there's a lot of efficiency and tactics to an AR-15 and an AK-47 that seems to be where the heartache is coming from when it comes to who wants to ban an AR-15, because there was a bill introduced. I want to say I was looking it up the other day. I think it was the 117th Congress between 2001 and 2021, 2022, about an AR-15 and an AK-47 ban, but it was just introduced and I think put to the Judiciary Committee to see if it's legal or not. But but because the knowledge and the know-how of how to make an AR-15 is already out there, besides what actually is background checked on it, I think that's where the misconception is. And we'll get more into that'll probably be like I said, that'll probably be a different video and just on the actual purchasing of a gun, or what stuff gets background checked, what stuff doesn't get background checked. I think that's an important distinction, because I think just to someone who might not have a big interest in guns, or maybe someone that just sees an AR-15 for what it is and just thinks, okay, this is a fully constructed rifle. This whole thing is considered a rifle, but what actually gets background checked on an AR-15, I think is fascinating, but is also very important. And I also think that's one of the main reasons why more restrictions, because of the technology and what we know how to do and what people can do from their homes with a 3D printer. We're going to start background checking 3D printers, because you can make your own magazine off of a 3D printer. Different mills, lathes, routers, all those type of things, tools that you need to make whatever it is that you want. That if you really did want your own, say, 100 round mag, and those restrictions on it, well, the whole thing with banning, and this is still on topic with, okay, even if you do have some type of restrictions, then possessing it would be illegal. So let's pick on felons, for instance. How no felon, as far as I know, that's just across the board in the United States, is that no felon, once you go to prison, you're not allowed to own a gun. Any type of gun. I think actually I take that back. I think black powder might be the only thing that a felon can buy, but I would have to check. As far as legally, but here's the issue: is that back to a 80% receiver, I could have an 80% lower receiver sent directly to my house. Anyone can have an 80% receiver sent directly to their house. There might be some. I'll have to look more specifically as we go on here, because I did see that there were like 8 or so states that did have ghost gun laws. How they regulate what gets sent to the house, I would be kind of more curious to look at. But 40 plus states have it to where I can get a partial receival sent to my door. You might not be able to have all the parts sent as far as like the jig and the instructions. I think they separated those out with the law that they had signed last year. That House passed, Senate passed, called like the bipartisan Community Safe Act, and that got signed last year. That had to deal with ghost guns. I don't know if I'll have to look more into it, but I think it makes it so that you can't send an 80% receival and the jig at the same time. I think they have to be separated. But just the amount of things that you can get just sent to your door without ever having a background check, that even if you were a felon and not allowed to have it, there's nothing stopping you from ordering that online and having it sent to your house. Um, I don't think I'm missing a step. If I am, comment, and so we can discuss it. That's a lot of the reason why I wanted to do this video, is to discuss. But just the amount of things that don't get background checked in a rifle and can have that just sent straight to your house, that the only way you would get caught with that possession is if, if you were still on parole and decided to do this. Then obviously, I think it's a bad idea either way. But I say in one aspect, like if your parole officer was going to be doing a house check and you did all this, well, then it's like, okay, well, then you're going back to jail. Or the other way is that if you decided to be driving with it and at the same time speed to where you get pulled over, and somehow a cop ends up, because you are an ex-felon, or they see that um, if you have a bench warrant or something like that, now they consult your car. Oh, now all of a sudden they find a rifle in the vehicle. But it's not like cops don't randomly have probable cause to just be like, oh, you're a felon, I need to see if you have a rifle or not. I don't think that's how it works. That's one of the reasons why traffic stops are so effective, is that if you do agree to be, to some extent, like I said, this isn't legal advice, but just from what I've seen on different videos, is that if you do consent to a search, in some fashion. Now, at one point, it doesn't matter if you consent; it gets searched. But there are some, up until that point, if a cop randomly, let's say, comes up to you and says, "Hey, can I search you?" and you have drugs on you, but you say yes for some reason, then they find it. Okay, well then you just consented to a search and got found on it. So similarly with guns, is that if I have no police or no cop knows as of now that it's like that I have, and I'm allowed to. I was a correction officer for 5 years. I haven't. I am legally allowed to own guns, but it's not like cops have a random probable cause to be like, oh, I'm going to go search this house today to see if they can and cannot have guns. So the fact that felons could still obtain an AR-15 style rifle, all they have to do is construct it themselves and have it sent straight to their door. There's not a lot of regulation with that. The only thing that's going to stop it is if they actually get caught probably doing something else, given a cop probable cause, and then find it. But anyway, that'd be an interesting discussion point. And really just kind of leads into why I don't think legislation in and of itself is, so far, it hasn't seemed like, based on what we've discussed so far, it's just, even if you, right, because right now it's illegal for a felon to have a gun, but I just explained how they could. Um, so that's not a viable solution. And kind of like, I was thinking about this metaphor this morning, that let's say it's illegal to go rob a house, but in order to, but we also have breaking and entering laws. Does the breaking and entering law keep someone from robbing a house, and that's not the case. If someone's dedicated, staked it out, and wanted to rob a house, they're not thinking about, well, crap, I don't want to get caught for breaking and entering. No, it's the robbery that they're concerned about. The Italian Job would be a pretty dull movie if right at the beginning someone brought up like, ah, man, shoot, we want to rob all this gold, but I don't want to get busted for breaking and entering. So, job's off. That's not how it works. And so with interesting interview with just I've from what I've seen is that from some congressmen, senators, I can't remember which one, just in general, that those already laws on the books that say like no guns in school zones. Someone wanting to do the criminal act, the big old criminal act, I don't see them being nervous about the small misdemeanors up until that point. So we already have laws on the books, but someone could, as I just described, get parts sent directly to their house. And then if they're not worried about minor laws, are going to go do what they want to do. I did some research on just because I was kind of curious at the time since he died now, but he was housed at Florence, Colorado, the Unabomber, and that was illegal for him to do. He was in the boonies in Montana, and the only way that they, how they, I don't want to say stumbled upon, but the brother recognized the handwriting of the brother's manifesto and said, this kind of sounds like what my brother believes, plus the handwriting kind of matches. I think I need to tell the police about it. And that's how the task force was able to link the Unabomber, Ted Krasinski, to the bombings. And then they found all the bombing parts in his little cabin. But it's like he legally bought all that and then constructed it to but there were already laws against, I'm sure, doing that, but he did it anyway. So, but that would be an interesting, another future topic would just kind of be the differences between, uh, and I say mass kills because that encompasses not just weapons or guns that we used. It, can include other things, obviously, and then like the difference between that and serial killers. I thought it's just kind of an interesting. I've, have a, I like to study, but so just kind of coming to a close on this video, just kind of opening up the discussion. What I'd like to do just in the upcoming videos is now let's explain more or let's show more of the different philosophies as to what are some different aspects of why people choose to carry what they carry or how they choose to conceal carry or do they carry with one in the chamber, the just what you can get sent to you, what the FFL does, what gets background checked, what doesn't get background checked, and then just hopefully also encourage people just to be more, I'd say one of the biggest aspect and what we're kind of proving, as I said, this video was kind of a proof, and so with the videos becoming up will be sort of a proof to my point. What I think might be the solution is just the more education, the better, and that can mean a lot of different things. And I think we can explore and discuss it more in detail. But is there a way to, like the carrot and the stick analogy, is there a way to put a carrot in front of this and are things preventable and can we educate and be able to move and make some progress in this? So let's discuss.